Imagine being the new kid at a prestigious high school, hoping for a fresh start, only to become the prime target of the most feared bully in town. But when she crosses the line, she has no idea who's about to stand up and why she'll instantly regret it. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a new school, a new neighborhood, a new chance to leave the shadows of the past behind. But as Tiana Morgan sat quietly in the passenger seat of her father's patrol car, watching the cityscape of Chicago slowly give way to the suburban streets of Roosevelt High, she couldn't shake the feeling of dread knotting in her stomach. Her father, John Morgan, glanced at her from the driver's seat, his hands firm but gentle on the wheel. He had seen this look before. The way her shoulders tensed, the way she bit her lip to hide the anxiety simmering just beneath the surface. He reached out, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. "You're gonna be just fine, Tiana," he said softly, trying to mask his own worry with calm conviction. "You're tougher than you think." Tiana didn't respond. How many times had she heard that phrase? How many schools had she walked into, hoping that maybe this time would be different, that the whispers wouldn't follow her, that the judgment wouldn't weigh her down like chains wrapped around her soul? She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that Roosevelt High wasn't just another stop on the endless journey of proving herself, of surviving instead of living. The school building loomed ahead, an imposing structure of red brick and iron gates, proud and grand like a monument to someone else's glory. Tiana swallowed hard, her hands gripping the straps of her backpack as if it were the only anchor in a sea of uncertainty. As John parked the car, Tiana caught sight of clusters of students congregating on the steps. Laughter spilled out into the crisp morning air, weaving through snippets of conversation and bursts of excitement. Tiana took a deep breath, summoning every bit of courage she had left. This time would be different. It had to be. When she finally stepped out of the car, her presence seemed to ripple through the air, like a drop of ink spreading in clear water. Eyes turned her way, some curious, some indifferent, and a few filled with thinly veiled disdain. Tiana kept her head down, pretending not to notice the murmurs that followed her as she walked toward the main entrance. John watched her go, his heart aching in ways he couldn't put into words. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the harshness of the world, but he knew that this was something she had to face on her own. He whispered a silent prayer, hoping that this school would be kinder, that this time Tiana would find a place to belong. Inside, the hallways were a maze of noise and chaos. Lockers slammed, students rushed past, their voices merging into an incomprehensible hum. Tiana focused on her schedule, trying to decipher the room numbers, when a sudden shove knocked her off balance. Her backpack slipped from her shoulder, scattering notebooks across the floor. "Watch where you're going," a voice snapped. Tiana looked up, meeting the cold blue eyes of a tall blonde girl surrounded by a trio of equally polished followers. The girl smirked, not bothering to help as Tiana scrambled to gather her things. "New girl, huh?" the blonde said, her tone dripping with superiority. "Better watch your step. Roosevelt's not the place for strays." Tiana bit her tongue, forcing down the retort that threatened to escape. She didn't want trouble, not on the first day. As she stood, one of the girl's friends deliberately kicked her notebook farther down the hall, sending another ripple of laughter through the group. A boy approached, bending down to retrieve the notebook before handing it to Tiana. He had curly brown hair and kind eyes that seemed to soften the harshness around them. "Ignore them," he whispered. "They're not worth it." She managed a faint smile. "Thanks." He introduced himself as Max, a junior who had seen the way Madison Blake and her crew treated newcomers. "Don't let her get to you," Max advised. "She thinks she owns the place, but not everyone buys into her act." Madison's laugh cut through the hallway like a knife, and Tiana couldn't help but glance back, catching the glare aimed her way. Her heart pounded, the instinct to run pressing down on her, but she stayed rooted in place, determined not to show fear. The bell rang, and the crowd dispersed. Tiana hurried to her first class, hoping to blend in with the sea of faces. She found a seat near the window and kept her gaze fixed on the empty notepad in front of her. A few minutes later, the teacher, Mrs. Harper, introduced her to the class. "This is Tiana Morgan. She's new to Roosevelt, so let's make her feel welcome," Mrs. Harper announced. Madison, sitting at the back, leaned over to one of her friends, whispering just loud enough for Tiana to hear. "Yeah, sure. Can't wait to see how long this one lasts." A wave of heat crawled up Tiana's neck, but she forced herself to ignore it. She wouldn't let them know they'd gotten under her skin. As the lesson went on, Tiana couldn't help but feel like prey caught in the sights of a predator. She knew what it felt like to be hunted, to have someone mark her as weak, but she couldn't afford to crumble. Not again. When the final bell rang, Tiana gathered her things quickly, eager to escape the suffocating tension. Max caught up with her outside. "You did good in there," he said, his smile genuine. "Don't let Madison scare you off." Tiana managed a grateful nod, but the fear lingered like a shadow. As she walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that Roosevelt High was just another battlefield, and she was already a target. One thing was clear: Madison Blake wasn't going to make this easy. And for the first time, Tiana wondered if she had the strength to survive the storm brewing around her. The first week at Roosevelt High felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of jagged glass. Tiana did her best to keep her head down, to blend in, but blending in seemed impossible when Madison Blake had already marked her as a target. Each day seemed to bring a new challenge, a new way to humiliate her, and it wasn't long before the relentless pressure began to wear down even Tiana's carefully constructed walls. It started small: a whisper as she passed by, a sarcastic laugh when she answered a question in class. It was like Madison had instructed the entire school to watch Tiana, waiting for her to slip up so they could feed on her mistakes. One morning, as Tiana approached her locker, she noticed something odd. The door was slightly ajar, and when she pulled it open, a foul smell hit her. Someone had dumped spoiled milk inside, and it had soaked through her books and jacket. A piece of paper fluttered to the ground, and Tiana picked it up, heart pounding. In messy, looping letters, it read, "Go back to where you belong." Her hands trembled as she cleaned out the mess. The hallways felt suffocating, and she knew people were watching, some with pity, others with amusement. Tiana bit her lip, refusing to let the tears fall. She could almost hear her father's voice in her mind. "Stay strong, Tiana. You're tougher than you think." But how could she believe that when every day was just another battle to endure? Max found her during lunch, sitting outside by herself, her back against the brick wall of the school. She was trying to air out her jacket, the smell still clinging to the fabric. He knelt beside her, offering a sandwich. "You okay?" She shrugged, not trusting herself to speak. "Madison did that, didn't she?" Max's voice was quiet, but firm. Tiana didn't answer. Max let out a frustrated "See, you shouldn't have to put up with this. Have you thought about telling someone?" "No one cares," Tiana whispered. "People like Madison. They don't get in trouble. She's untouchable." Max hesitated before speaking. "My older brother went here before me. Madison was just as bad back then. A few kids tried to stand up to her, but it never lasted. Her dad's money keeps her safe. People just gave up fighting." "That's not right," Tiana muttered. "It shouldn't be that way." Max looked at her with a sad smile. "It's not right, but no one knows how to change it." One day, as Tiana walked into the cafeteria, she felt a cold liquid splash over her head. Gasping, she realized her hair and clothes were soaked with soda. Laughter erupted behind her, and when she turned, Madison was holding an empty cup, eyes gleaming with cruel satisfaction. "Oops," Madison cooed. "Did I ruin your lunch, new girl?" Humiliated, Tiana froze, unsure whether to run or fight back. Her fists clenched, but the weight of everyone's stares pinned her in place. Madison's friends snickered, some pulling out their phones to record the scene. A teacher finally intervened, But instead of addressing Madison, she looked at Tiana with a mix of pity and exasperation. "Clean yourself up, Miss Morgan. You can't walk around school like that." No one said anything to Madison. No punishment, not even a reprimand. As Tiana made her way to the restroom, sticky soda dripping onto the floor, she realized that at Roosevelt, power didn't come from being right, it came from who you knew and how much they feared you. At home, Tiana tried to wash the dried soda out of her hair. John noticed her somber mood and sat beside her on the couch. "Rough day?" he asked. Tiana didn't look at him. "Why do some people get to hurt others without any consequences?" John's face grew serious. "Is someone bothering you at school?" She hesitated. "It's just, some people think they're better because they have money, and everyone else just lets it happen." John didn't push for more. Instead, he wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "You're not alone in this, Tiana. You have a voice. You just have to decide when to use it." That night, lying in bed, Tiana thought about those words. Her father always made it sound so simple, but in the halls of Roosevelt High, speaking up felt like inviting more pain. Madison wasn't just a bully, she was an institution, rooted in the school's foundation. To challenge her meant risking everything. The next morning, Tiana walked into the school with her head held just a little higher, determined not to let Madison see the cracks forming. She passed by Max, who gave her a small nod of encouragement. But as soon as she entered the classroom, Madison was there, whispering to her friends, eyes flicking toward Tiana with malicious glee. Tiana took her seat, her heart pounding in her ears, wondering how long she could keep pretending that everything was fine. The pressure was building, and she knew that eventually something would have to give. John Morgan had always prided himself on his ability to read people. Years of police work had sharpened his instincts, and being a father had softened his heart. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the pain of watching his daughter crumble right before his eyes. He knew something was wrong the moment Tiana came home that evening. Her shoulders were slumped and her eyes looked dull, as if the fire that usually burned bright within her had been extinguished. John felt a pang of guilt. He had been so caught up in his new role as sheriff that he hadn't noticed her struggle sooner. He watched as Tiana trudged up the stairs without a word, her backpack dragging on the ground. The soft click of her bedroom door closing made him feel helpless. He hesitated, not wanting to push, but his instincts told him to follow her. Knocking gently on the door, he waited for her permission to enter. "Come in," Tiana mumbled. John pushed the door open, finding her sitting on the edge of the bed, still wearing her jacket as if she hadn't moved since she walked in. He sat down next to her, careful to give her space. "Tiana," he started softly, "I know something's been bothering you. I need you to talk to me, sweetheart. Let me help." She looked down at her hands, twisting her fingers nervously. "It's nothing, Dad, just school stuff." John wasn't convinced. "School stuff doesn't usually make you look this defeated. Come on, kiddo, I know you. Talk to me." Tiana swallowed hard, trying to hold back the wave of emotions that threatened to crash over her. "It's just some girls at school. They don't like me. They've been making it hard to fit in." John frowned, sensing there was more to it. "What do you mean, making it hard?" She hesitated, her voice dropping to a whisper. "They bully me, Dad. Madison Blake and her friends. They call me names, mess with my stuff. Yesterday, they poured soda on me in the cafeteria. Everyone just laughed." John's hands clenched at his sides. He wanted to protect his daughter from the world, but this was personal. "How long has this been going on?" "Since the first day," Tiana admitted. "I tried to ignore it, but it just keeps getting worse. And no one at school does anything. Madison's dad is some big shot, so the teachers just look the other way." John's jaw tightened. He had seen corruption before, wealth and power bending the rules. But this was his daughter, and no amount of influence was going to keep him silent. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Tiana wiped at her eyes. I didn't want to make it worse. Madison's the most popular girl at school. If I make a big deal, it'll just get uglier. John reached over, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. You shouldn't have to go through this alone. Bullies like Madison thrive on silence and fear. You're strong, Tiana, but even the strongest people need help sometimes. Let me handle this. Tiana leaned into him, feeling a small sense of relief. But what if it makes everything worse? He kissed the top of her head. Sometimes standing up to bullies means facing the storm, but you're not facing it alone. We'll do this together. The next morning, John dressed in his uniform, his badge gleaming with purpose. As they drove to school, he noticed Tiana's tension. He reached over, giving her hand a reassuring squeeze. Whatever happens today, just know that you deserve respect. No one has the right to make you feel less than who you are. When they arrived, John walked beside Tiana into the principal's office. Principal Richard Turner greeted him with a polite but wary smile. Sheriff Morgan, to what do I owe the pleasure? John's tone was calm but firm. I'm here to discuss the harassment my daughter has been experiencing at your school, specifically at the hands of Madison Blake. Turner's expression faltered. Madison. I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. Madison is one of our most outstanding students. John remained unmoved. Outstanding or not, my daughter has been bullied from day one, and it stops today. Turner glanced nervously at his desk, clearly uncomfortable. Sheriff, I understand your concerns, but Madison's father is a significant benefactor of the school. We have to be cautious. John cut him off. I'm not here to discuss politics. I'm here because my daughter deserves to feel safe. I don't care how much money her family has. I want this addressed immediately. Reluctantly, Turner agreed to call Madison and her parents to the office. A few minutes later, Thomas and Evelyn Blake arrived, followed by Madison, whose confident smirk faded when she saw John. Thomas Blake didn't bother hiding his annoyance. Is there a problem here? John's tone was steady. Yeah, your daughter has been harassing mine. I'm here to make sure it stops. Madison feigned innocence. That's not true. She's just making it up because she doesn't fit in. John leaned forward, his eyes locked on Madison. Tiana doesn't need to make things up. I'm here because I believe my daughter. This ends now. Evelyn Blake scoffed. Maybe your daughter is just being overly sensitive. Kids tease each other. It's part of growing up. John's voice grew colder. There's a difference between teasing and targeted harassment. My daughter was humiliated in front of the entire cafeteria. Your daughter needs to understand that actions have consequences. Turner cleared his throat. I think we can find a resolution here. Perhaps an apology. John didn't back down. An apology isn't enough. I want Madison to understand that bullying isn't just kids being kids. It's damaging, it's hurtful, and it will stop. Madison's bravado began to crack, her eyes darting nervously between her father and John. Thomas sighed heavily. Madison, did you do what they're saying? Madison hesitated, her voice smaller than before. I didn't think it was that bad. We were just joking. John's gaze softened just a fraction. Bullying is never a joke. It's a way of making someone feel small, and no one deserves that. Turner finally agreed to issue a warning and set up a mediation session between the girls. As they left, Madison looked back, fear replacing her usual smugness. Tiana felt a sense of justice blooming, knowing her dad had her back. As they walked out of the building, John squeezed her shoulder. You did great in there. Tiana smiled faintly. I couldn't have done it without you. John smiled back. You won't ever have to. We're in this together. The morning light streamed through the cracks in Tiana's window blinds, waking her earlier than usual. She lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events of the previous day. The confrontation with Madison, the look on Principal Turner's face, and most of all, the way her father had stood by her side. All of it had swirled into a chaotic mix of fear and relief. Today felt different, though. The fear was still there, but it was no longer the only thing she felt. There was something else, a faint spark of determination. When she finally got up, Tiana glanced at herself in the mirror, noticing the way her shoulders didn't slump as much as they used to. She took a deep breath, feeling a resolve build within her. Maybe for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel entirely powerless. Her dad's words from the day before echoed in her mind. Bullies thrive on fear. You're stronger than you think. As she walked to school, she couldn't help but notice the way some students glanced at her. Curiosity, surprise, even respect. It wasn't the usual pity or indifference. Max caught up with her near the entrance, a cautious smile on his face. "Hey," he said, "you okay?" Tiana nodded. "Yeah, I think I'm okay," he chuckled softly. "People are talking. Madison never got called out like that before. I think you kind of shocked everyone." She shrugged, unsure of how to feel about it. "I just couldn't take it anymore." Max nodded knowingly. "Sometimes that's what it takes. You did good, Tiana, really." In English class, Mrs. Harper announced that they would be starting a group project. Tiana's name was called alongside Chloe, one of Madison's former friends, and Luke, a quiet but kind-hearted guy from the back of the class. As they gathered in a corner, Chloe hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "Hey," Chloe started, her voice uncertain. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for how I acted before. I never really thought about how hard it was for you. I just didn't want to be on Madison's bad side. I guess I didn't realize how wrong that was." Tiana studied her face, seeing a flicker of sincerity. Luke chimed in, offering a small smile. "Yeah, Madison can be pretty intense. It takes guts to stand up to her like you did." For a moment, Tiana didn't know how to respond. Part of her wanted to snap back, to remind them that silence made them complicit. But another part, the part that was tired of carrying so much anger, just wanted to move on. "Thanks," she said softly. "I appreciate it." The project planning went smoother than expected, and Tiana found herself actually enjoying the conversation. Chloe shared a few jokes, and Luke's thoughtful suggestions made the work easy. For the first time since arriving at Roosevelt High, Tiana didn't feel entirely alone. But the peace didn't last long. During lunch, as Tiana sat with Max and a few others, Madison walked past, deliberately bumping her tray so that it tipped over, spilling spaghetti onto Tiana's lap. The cafeteria went silent, all eyes fixed on the scene. "Oops," Madison sneered. "Still clumsy, huh?" Tiana's heart pounded. The old fear clawed at her, begging her to stay quiet, to look down and pretend it didn't happen. But something stronger pushed back. She stood up, wiping the sauce from her hands, and looked Madison directly in the eye. "Madison, stop, just stop," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "You think this makes you powerful? Picking on people who don't fight back? It doesn't. It just makes you a coward." A murmur swept through the room. Madison's face reddened, but before she could retort, Tiana continued. "You've spent years making people scared of you, but guess what? I'm not scared anymore, and I'm done being quiet." Madison looked around, realizing that people were watching her differently now. Less admiration, more judgment. She opened her mouth to retaliate, but no words came out. Instead, she glared at Tiana and walked away, her confidence visibly shaken. Max grinned, giving Tiana a thumbs up. Chloe and Luke, who had been sitting nearby, exchanged impressed glances. The cafeteria slowly returned to its usual noise, but the dynamic had shifted. Tiana felt the weight lift from her chest, replaced by something lighter, something almost like pride. That afternoon, Principal Turner called Tiana to his office. Expecting the worst, she walked in cautiously. To her surprise, Turner looked almost relieved. "I wanted to let you know," he began. that after yesterday's meeting, we've started implementing some changes to address bullying at Roosevelt. You were right to speak up, and I'm sorry we didn't act sooner. Tiana wasn't sure how to respond. Thank you, she managed. Turner gave her a small, genuine smile. Sometimes it takes one person to stand up to change things. You did that. You should be proud. As she left the office, Tiana couldn't help but smile. Maybe she had been that one person. Maybe speaking up was the first step towards something better, not just for her, but for everyone. Walking down the hall, she felt more confident, more herself than she had in a long time. When she got home that evening, John was waiting with a cautious look. Heard about the lunchroom incident, he said, arching an eyebrow. Tiana sighed. I didn't mean to cause a scene, but I couldn't let her get away with it again. John pulled her into a hug, his voice filled with pride. You didn't cause a scene. You spoke up for yourself. That's bravery. I'm proud of you. Tiana held on to him, feeling the warmth of his support wash over her. For the first time, she knew that standing up hadn't made her weaker. It had given her the strength she needed to move forward. That night, lying in bed, she felt a strange sense of calm. Roosevelt High might still be challenging, and Madison might not change overnight, but Tiana knew she had found something more important than popularity or acceptance. She had found her voice, and she wasn't going to let anyone take it from her again. The days that followed the confrontation in the cafeteria were strangely quiet. Tiana noticed how the usual tension that gripped Roosevelt High seemed to have loosened, as if her boldness had cracked the invisible wall of fear that Madison had constructed. It wasn't that Madison had completely lost her influence. Students still regarded her with a cautious eye, but the unwavering respect she once commanded was noticeably absent. Tiana moved through the hallways differently now. Her head was held a little higher, and she didn't flinch when people glanced her way. There were still whispers, but they didn't sting like before. Some students even smiled at her, a fleeting but genuine acknowledgement that felt worlds apart from the cold indifference she was used to. She realized that fear wasn't ruling her anymore, and that realization made everything feel lighter. One morning, as Tiana was collecting her books from her locker, Chloe approached her, looking tentative but sincere. Hey, Chloe said, fiddling with the strap of her bag. I just wanted to say, you really did something brave in the cafeteria. I think everyone was kind of shocked, but in a good way. No one's really ever stood up to Madison like that. Tiana offered a small smile. I just got tired of being afraid. Chloe nodded, her gaze dropping. I get that. I I should have done something sooner. I guess I always thought that being on Madison's side was safer, but seeing you stand up like that made me realize how wrong that was. I'm sorry I didn't help you when I could have. For a moment, Tiana didn't know how to respond. She hadn't expected an apology, especially not from one of Madison's closest friends. It's okay, Tiana replied. Fear makes people do things they're not proud of. I get it. Chloe looked relieved, a faint smile tugging at her lips. You're a lot stronger than most people give you credit for. If you ever need someone to hang out with, I'm here. As the weeks went by, the changes became more evident. Madison seemed quieter, less likely to make snide remarks in the hallways. When she did speak, it was with a guarded tone, as if testing the waters of her diminishing influence. Her friends, once her loyal entourage, now seemed more distant, like they were re-evaluating their own roles in the dynamic she had created. One day during lunch, as Tiana and Max were discussing a project, Madison approached their table, looking uncomfortable. Can I talk to you? She asked, her eyes darting nervously between Tiana and Max. Max glanced at Tiana, clearly unsure, but Tiana nodded. Sure, she said. Madison shifted her weight from one foot to the other, uncharacteristically hesitant. Look, I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I guess I didn't realize how much I was hurting people. I was just, I don't know, trying to stay in control. I thought that's what I had to do. Tiana studied her face, seeing traces of vulnerability. "Why did you do it?" she asked gently. Madison sighed, looking at the floor. "My dad, he always told me that if I didn't take control, people would walk all over me. I thought that meant being tough, making sure no one challenged me. But I guess I went too far." Tiana considered her words carefully. Being strong doesn't mean putting others down. It means being confident without needing to hurt people. You don't have to control everything to matter. Madison swallowed hard, nodding. "I know that now. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I wanted to apologize." Tiana offered a small, understanding smile. "Maybe it'll take some time, but I appreciate that you're trying." As Madison walked away, Max leaned closer, whispering, "Did that really just happen?" Tiana couldn't help but chuckle. "Yeah, I think it did." That evening, Tiana told her dad about the apology. John listened carefully, his eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and pride. "You handled that well, Tiana," he said. "It takes a lot of courage to not only stand up for yourself, but to also be willing to forgive." Tiana thought about that, realizing how much she had grown in such a short time. "I guess I just want to move forward. Holding on to all that anger isn't helping anyone." John smiled, his hand resting on her shoulder. "That's the kind of strength that makes you truly powerful. I'm proud of you." In the weeks that followed, Roosevelt High felt different. Students who had once feared Madison's wrath started to speak up more, sharing their own stories of being targeted. The anti-bullying program that Principal Turner had implemented gained real momentum, with students actively participating and supporting one another. The school felt less like a battlefield and more like a place where people could start to feel safe. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper approached Tiana after class. "You know, you've really made a difference here," she said warmly. "Sometimes it only takes one person standing up to inspire others. You've given this school something it was missing: hope." Tiana felt her cheeks flush. "I didn't think I was doing anything special. I just didn't want to be scared anymore." Mrs. Harper nodded knowingly. "And that's exactly why it worked." At the end of the school year, Tiana received an unexpected recognition, an award for demonstrating courage and positive change within the student community. As she accepted it, the applause filled the auditorium, and Tiana spotted her dad in the audience, clapping with unabashed pride. Later, as they drove home, John glanced over, his voice soft but full of emotion. "You know, Tiana, I always knew you had this strength in you. It just took the right moment for you to see it too." Tiana smiled, the warmth of accomplishment settling in her chest. "I guess I didn't know how strong I could be until I had to be." John reached over, giving her hand a gentle squeeze. "You didn't just find your voice. You gave others the courage to find theirs too. That's something special." As they pulled into the driveway, Tiana felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. She knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but now she had the confidence to face them. She had learned that true strength didn't come from dominating others, but from standing firm in her own truth. No one could take that from her. Roosevelt High was no longer just another school. It had become a place where Tiana found her strength, her voice, and, most importantly, herself. As she looked at the setting sun casting golden light over their home, Tiana knew that she was no longer defined by fear. She was defined by the courage to stand up and the determination to keep moving forward. The following weeks at Roosevelt High marked a turning point not just for Tiana, but for the entire student body. After the assembly where she received her Courage Award, students began to look at her with newfound respect. Some still seemed unsure how to approach her, but others, students she had never spoken to before, offered her shy but warm smiles in the hallways. It was as if the school was collectively exhaling after years of holding its breath, finally daring to believe that the toxic atmosphere could change. Madison Blake, once the unchallenged queen of Roosevelt High, had changed too. Though she still carried herself with a hint of her former pride, she walked more quietly, without her usual entourage. Occasionally, Tiana would catch sight of her eating lunch alone, her eyes fixed on her phone as if trying to distract herself from the reality that she was no longer at the center of attention. Tiana couldn't help but feel a pang of empathy. As much as Madison had hurt her, seeing her isolated and vulnerable stirred something deeper, an understanding of how fear can shape a person into something they're not proud of. One afternoon, as Tiana was packing up her books after class, Chloe came up to her with an excited grin. "You're not going to believe this," Chloe said, practically bouncing on her heels. "Principal Turner just announced that the school is forming a student council to address bullying and improve school culture. And guess what? They want you to help lead it." Tiana froze, her heart pounding. "Me? Why?" Chloe laughed. "Seriously? After everything you've done, it's pretty obvious. You've made a difference here. People listen when you speak." Tiana couldn't process it at first. The idea of being a leader was daunting. She had spent so much time just trying to survive that the thought of guiding others felt surreal. But as she thought about the way the school had changed, the way other students had started to stand up for themselves, a small voice inside her whispered that maybe she could do it. Maybe she could be more than just the girl who survived. That evening, Tiana told her dad about the offer over dinner. John raised his eyebrows, clearly proud. "They couldn't have picked anyone better," he said, scooping mashed potatoes onto his plate. "You've already shown them what it means to stand up for what's right." Tiana traced patterns on the table with her finger, still uncertain. "But what if I mess up? What if people start hating me the way they hated Madison?" John placed his hand over hers. "Leadership isn't about being popular. It's about doing what's right even when it's hard. You've already proven you can do that. The rest is just learning as you go." Taking a deep breath, Tiana nodded. I guess, I guess I could try." The next day, Principal Turner officially introduced the new Student Council initiative during the morning announcements, highlighting that it was inspired by the courage shown by Tiana and other students who had spoken out against bullying. When Tiana's name was mentioned, a ripple of applause echoed through the halls. She felt her cheeks flush, but couldn't help the small smile that tugged at her lips. After the meeting, Tiana found herself surrounded by students wanting to congratulate her. Max appeared at her side, grinning from ear to ear. "Told you you'd end up leading a revolution," he teased. The first council meeting was scheduled for that Friday. As Tiana entered the library where they were gathering, she was surprised to see Madison sitting near the back, nervously tapping her pen on the table. Principal Turner had insisted that anyone who wanted to help could join, and it seemed Madison had taken the opportunity. When the meeting began, Tiana hesitated before speaking, unsure how to address the group. But as she looked around and saw familiar faces, Max, Chloe, Luke, even Madison, she remembered what her father had said about leadership. She cleared her throat and began. "I guess I never thought I'd be here," Tiana started. "A few months ago, I was just trying to make it through the day without being noticed. But things changed when I realized that silence wasn't keeping me safe. It was just giving more power to people who wanted to hurt others. Speaking up was hard, but it made a difference. And that's what this council is about, making sure that no one feels alone or powerless at Roosevelt High." To her surprise, Madison raised her hand, her voice hesitant but sincere. "I know I was part of the problem. I thought being feared meant being respected, but I was wrong. I want to help fix what I broke. If that means listening and learning from others, I'm willing to do it." Tiana nodded, grateful for Madison's honesty. "We can't change the past, but we can decide how to move forward. This council isn't just about stopping bullying. It's about creating a place where everyone feels safe. It's going to take time, but I believe we can do it if we work together." The meeting ended on a hopeful note, and as the students filed out, Max nudged Tiana. "You're a natural," he whispered. Tiana rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress her smile. As they walked down the hall, she noticed Madison lingering behind. Tiana slowed her pace, giving Madison a chance to catch up. "I didn't expect you to join the council," Tiana admitted. Madison shrugged, her eyes downcast. "I didn't expect to either. I guess I don't want to be that person anymore. You made me see that." Tiana thought back to the months of pain and humiliation, but forced herself to see the bigger picture. People can change if they really want to. Just make sure it's not just words. Madison met her gaze, a hint of determination in her eyes. "I will, I promise." As they parted ways, Tiana couldn't help but feel a sense of cautious optimism. Change wasn't easy, and redemption wasn't always linear. But for the first time, it seemed like the cycle of fear and control that had dominated Roosevelt High was finally breaking. And Tiana, once afraid to even lift her head, was now helping guide the school towards something better. When she got home that evening, John was waiting with 2 cups of hot cocoa. They sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tiana felt a calmness she hadn't known before, a sense of purpose, and a belief that things could truly get better. "You did good today," John said quietly. "Not just by standing up, but by giving others the chance to do better too." Tiana leaned against his shoulder, content. "I guess I just realized that real strength isn't just about fighting back. Sometimes it's about helping others find their way too." John smiled, his pride evident. "You're making this town a better place, Tiana, one step at a time." And as the evening stretched on, Tiana knew that this new path wouldn't always be easy. But she also knew that she wasn't walking it alone. She had friends, family, and even unexpected allies by her side. Together, they were building something stronger, a community where everyone had a voice. Reflecting on Tiana Morgan's journey, it's remarkable to see how one girl's quiet strength blossomed into a force of change not just for herself, but for her entire community. When Tiana first arrived at Roosevelt High, she was no different from countless other students who feel isolated, targeted, and overwhelmed by the harsh realities of high school life. The fear of being judged and the pressure to remain silent made it easy for bullies like Madison Blake to dominate. In the beginning, Tiana's response was what many of us might choose: endure, blend in, and avoid confrontation. But the more she tried to disappear, the more Madison targeted her, seeing her quietness as weakness. It wasn't until Tiana reached her breaking point that she realized silence was no longer an option. With her father's unwavering support and a push from within to reclaim her dignity, Tiana chose to confront the reality that no one else would fight for her if she didn't fight for herself first. This critical turning point, when she stood up to Madison in the cafeteria, marked the beginning of a new chapter. It wasn't just about retaliating, it was about reclaiming her voice and refusing to let fear dictate her life. What makes Tiana's story so compelling isn't just her personal growth, but the ripple effect it created. By standing up, she inadvertently encouraged others to reflect on their own roles, whether as bystanders, victims, or even the bullies themselves. Chloe, once part of Madison's clique, came to realize the cost of her silent compliance, and Madison herself faced the uncomfortable truth of her own insecurities. Tiana didn't just change her own life, she initiated a transformation within Roosevelt High, proving that courage can be contagious when one person dares to break the cycle of silence. Another pivotal aspect of Tiana's journey is the role of her father, John Morgan. As a police officer, he was used to confronting injustice head-on, but seeing his daughter suffer made him realize that some battles aren't fought with authority. They're fought with love, support, and a willingness to listen. John's decision to advocate for Tiana at school while allowing her to face her struggles head-on was a testament to the balance between protecting a loved one and empowering them. Through his example, we learn that being a supportive parent means not only defending your child, but also equipping them to stand tall on their own. Madison's transformation, while subtle, also speaks to the potential for change even among those who seem irredeemable. Growing up with a father who instilled fear as a means of control, Madison never learned that true respect is earned through kindness, not dominance. Tiana's courage challenged Madison to see herself through a different lens, prompting her to question her own motivations and ultimately seek a different path. While Madison's journey to redemption is not immediate or guaranteed, the fact that she chose to participate in the student council reflects the possibility of growth when one is willing to confront their mistakes. As Roosevelt High gradually transformed from a place of intimidation to one of unity and understanding, it became evident that the true power lies not in silencing others, but in uplifting them. Tiana's leadership on the newly formed Student Council showcased how change isn't just about eliminating the negative but actively fostering a positive culture. By creating a space where students felt safe to share their stories and express their concerns, Tiana helped dismantle the toxic hierarchy that had long dominated the school. What can we learn from Tiana's story? First and foremost, it reminds us that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. When we choose to endure rather than confront, we enable those who thrive on power and control. Tiana's decision to speak up serves as a powerful reminder that our voices matter, and that sometimes the hardest battles are the ones that take place within us. The decision to stand up, even when it's easier to stay quiet. Secondly, the story highlights the importance of allies. Tiana couldn't have found her strength without the support of her father and the encouragement of new friends like Max. In real life, too, we need to build support networks that remind us we are not alone. Whether it's friends, family, or mentors, having people who believe in us can make the difference between feeling helpless and finding the courage to act. Lastly, Tiana's journey shows that true power is not about control or dominance, but about compassion and understanding. By choosing forgiveness over revenge, Tiana broke the cycle of hurt and created an opportunity for healing, not just for herself but for Madison as well. It's a lesson that resonates far beyond high school. When we choose empathy, we disarm hostility and open the door to meaningful change. As we reflect on this story, think about your own life. Have you ever faced a situation where staying silent felt safer than speaking out? Or maybe you witnessed someone being mistreated and felt unsure of how to intervene. Tiana's story challenges us to consider how we can make a difference, not necessarily by taking grand actions, but by refusing to be passive bystanders. Whether at school, work, or in our communities, the decision to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult, can inspire change in ways we may never fully see. In the end, Tiana Morgan's story isn't just about overcoming bullying. It's about discovering the strength to fight for one's own worth and encouraging others to do the same. Her courage sparked a movement, proving that one voice can indeed make a difference. It's a story of resilience, growth, and the undeniable power of unity when people come together to challenge what's wrong. If Tiana's story inspired you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories like this one, and together we can spread messages of hope, courage, and positive change. Don't forget to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your own stories of standing up against challenges or helping others find their voices. Thank you for being part of this journey, and we'll see you in the next video.